Morning, people. Just thought I'd start making some videos and share some of my experiences for others who are journeying through the astral planes and out-of-body experiences. Excuse the look, I've literally just woken up. I'm in lockdown mode, I'm still in PJs, but I know that if I don't do things straight away, like making a video, it doesn't get done at all. So it's getting done now. I'm not really sure where to start. I've been doing this for probably 20 years now, although only intensely, if you can call it intense. Intensity is probably not an ideal state to be in for astral projection. I'm not really sure where to begin. The first thing I'll say is that I think it's important to understand that we're not really here, not in the terms that most people think of being here. We are eternal beings, and I mean that in the literal sense of we are a being, we are awareness that is using the body per se to interact in this world. In real terms, in this reality, this is a prison planet we've been trapped in for some time. And the main technique of keeping us prisoners is memory erasure. And I think the astral projections, out-of-body experiences is a very good step in helping to remove some of that amnesia. It's effective and it takes time, but, well, we have all the time in the universe. But saying that, this is not a place you want to spend a lot of time as it is at the moment. It could be a paradise as well, but as we all know at present, it's far from that. I'll also say that the out-of-body experiences really are just a gateway to the experience of you not being here. I have no better words than that. You really don't exist at all in any sense other than an awareness of being. Everything else is a creation created by ourselves, us, me, you. There really is no separation. I, as far as I can tell, I am you and everybody else, and you are me. There are still some mysteries surrounding this individualization, shall we put it. But in a real sense, there is nothing, which is what we are, other than awareness. And then there is something which we create from the somethingness. In the, if you think in the Buddhist sort of sense, the nothing is the unmanifest, so is also everything. And in another sense, nothing doesn't exist by its own definition. But there is absolutely awareness, otherwise I couldn't make this video and nothing would exist. So there's the awareness, and then there's what has been dubbed the Maya, the illusion. It's real, but it's real because we're choosing to make it so. And I think that's important. Now, generally in our waking life, as I am now, and as people who'll be watching this, it can be a little hard to grasp. And this is why the astral body and the projection and the dream, I'd say dream yoga, if that's which is a good way to put it. That's a gateway to clearing enough space in our mental fog to get to that nothingness. And the nothingness is the most simple thing of all. That's who we are and always will be and always is. You can't grasp it, it's just there. But the only way to experience it and remember it is to not think. Beyond thought, as they say. But it's simple, and I find the best way is after I have a lucid dream or astral projection, or even just a normal dream, I wake up, lay in bed, and just not think and enjoy the sensation of being. For me personally, I will then often, if it's dark, I'll see what I think, I see flashes of light in the dark, and I feel released from my body. Now I personally know that I'm still well anchored here and have a lot more work to do to remove that anchor, but these are the first steps. And for me, when I see those lights and I feel the unfeelingness, the liberation, the freedom of the beingness, I think that's the way out. That is when we can start releasing the bonds and the traps of holding on to the illusion of the body and the illusion of the world. It doesn't mean that we can't still use the illusion. It doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. It doesn't mean it doesn't have a purpose. But the truth is, for most things, the purpose of anything is what we give it. Anyway, saying that, all right, I'll tell a few stories of things that have then had some confirmation in, let's say, the real world. So one lucid dream I had some years back, I used astral travel. I use the same thing. My out-of-body experiences might happen a strange way, but I think this happens to a lot of people as well, is that I will actually have a dream, think the dream is real, go to bed in that dream, and then have an out-of-body experience from that dream. And then from there, I become super lucid. Well, sometimes super lucid, and sometimes, anyone who does this, lucidity in those realms can be variable. And again, I'm going to put a caveat here that I think even these realms, they're not the real truth. They're just a way. They're a way to find the way to remember the truth, and the way to remember the truth is to forget. It's difficult to put into words. The experience is very simple. Anyway, so I ended up on a couch it was quite dark actually, the area, and I was in a room, and a gentleman walked out to the couch and sat down with me, and he mentioned his name was Voltaire. Now I'm fairly well read, but I'd heard the name, but I didn't really recognise it, and I actually originally said, "Is your name Vulture?" I was thinking it was like something symbolic. And he emphatically said, "No, my name is Voltaire." This guy was probably middle aged. He was quite stern, very very serious. And then we chatted, not for very long. I would say probably 15 or 20 seconds, and I don't even remember a lot of the conversation. It was more of a greeting, and then I remember specifically that his head changed from them into a dog and then into sort of a grey alien, which I thought was quite strange. Anyway, I woke up, I checked out some of his works, and I was very surprised to see that his line of thinking was very, very similar to mine. So that's cool. No worries. Anyway, a couple of months later, I wake up from sleep, and I'm in the in between. I call it in between state, a state where I often get short messages. I hear voices. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth, and I'm fully aware and conscious, but I'm not. But I'm just like in a void. That's the best way to put it. But in that void, I have to concentrate, and I find I will feel that I need to put my awareness somewhere, and when I put it in that spot, then I hear things. I generally don't see things in this zone, but I hear things. Other people probably see stuff, but I hear things. Anyway, so this time I hear clear as day a voice say to me, Napoleon hated Voltaire up to, and then it was just the number 235. That's all it said. It made no sense whatsoever. That was it. That was the whole transmission. So I woke up, got out, jumped onto Wikipedia, which I wouldn't normally use because usually it's full of crap. But anyway, I type up Napoleon and Voltaire. I didn't know what I was talking to. Anyway, it comes up onto Voltaire's wiki page, and only a couple of sentences down, it says, now I have no time frames. Like I like my ancient history, but sort of more modern history, I really have no idea. And this sentence basically stated, it said that Napoleon himself stated that he would have gone to war against Voltaire for his beliefs up to the age of 16. And then it said then he understood, his philosophy, and then something like, basically would have died for him or something like that. So he basically totally changed his mind. So anyway, I go back, find out the birth date of of Napoleon, add 16 years to it, and then I subtract that from the date it was at the time, and it was within 1 month of being exactly 235 years earlier that he made that statement. So you can take that for what it's worth, but that was, to me, was the first real life confirmation that these things aren't in my imagination. Is that when we go to these astral realms and we speak to these other people, they are their own soul, so to speak, their own isness. So that was a pretty cool one. I've had a lot. I'm not really sure which ones to talk about because a lot of them are linked into other things that, if you don't have prior knowledge about, probably won't make a lot of sense. I'll pause here for a second so I can think of the one. All right, so not long ago, I decided probably a year or so ago that I'm going to, after a few of these experiences, that I'm really going to try and dedicate myself to learning more about this. So I spoke to a lady not long ago who specialises in what she calls like alien soul reading, and see if you have, because I've had some strange-ish experiences with beings, I would say, that aren't human, put it that way. They seem to occupy this in-between space as well. It can be a little confronting. So anyway, I thought I'd get it checked out. She confirmed a few things to me, which was good. It was good. Again, just made me think that maybe I'm not totally crazy, which is always nice. So that night I was, I was fairly full of energy that night. We had a really good conversation. It was just nice to be able to express some of my feelings and experiences as someone who can understand. Obviously, people who go through these things. I tell a few stories to my mates. Most think I'm crazy, but that's fine. They love me anyway, and they love the stories. So that's cool, in my view of the world. So I come. So one of the techniques that I have to also go into the astral realms is that when I get in the in-between state, where I'm very relaxed but my mind is clear, I have the feeling that I do backflips in my mind. It's the best way to describe it. And it feels like I'm going down a roller coaster and it flips around. It's dark, but it has the feeling of movement, of motion. And I'll do this, it's a really nice feeling. And I'll do this for a little while, and then usually what I find is after, say, 30 seconds to a minute of having this, and I have no purpose, like I don't, and I'm not saying I probably couldn't direct it, but I just go with where it goes. Then usually something like a tunnel or a transition occurs, and then I basically walk into a dream fully conscious. And I also think if you can practice techniques like this, this is a really good technique for astral traveling. So I arrived in a house, or at the front of a house. It was fully empty, the lights are on. I go inside. It's a really nice place. It's all made of wood. The floors are made of wood, the walls are made of wood. There's no furniture inside, but the walls are covered in paintings. And as I go through, I just have the feeling that I'm meant to be there for some reason. I don't know. At this point, I didn't know why. So I'm walking along, and I find a painting that's fascinating. And I notice in the painting it has like three figures, and I recognise the figures as some relatives of mine. The main figure was my grandmother, but it wasn't my grandmother as I know her now. She was like I'm not sure if she was a queen, but she was certainly some high nobility, and it seemed that this house had a reflection of that. This was an old house. This is something where a house might have been 300, 400 years ago that would have been really expensive. You would have had to have come from some sort of form of nobility, I would think, to afford something like this. And but this painting sort of, it's a dream, so it come alive, and it's. There was no talking, but there was some animation, and it was seen that she wasn't particularly happy. I don't know, with my presence there, like I was defiling the place, but I think it was just more her being miserable, that she was sort of trapped in a painting. And to me, that it was a memory. It was probably a past life, and it was something that was important, but probably not important for the reasons that it should have been, and that she was my name was sort of trapped, part of her soul was sort of trapped there in those memories, and frustrated of probably not being able to let it go, and that's probably why I turned up there. So anyway, after that, and then my auntie was there, who I really like, and I spoke to her about it, and she turned into this pirate, and then started cursing me out. So I don't know, perhaps in another life, maybe I didn't treat her too nicely or something. And it was just funny because, I don't know, she has a bit of that in her, but nothing quite like the roughness of this character. So anyway, so I move on through the house, and I'm being pulled somewhere else, and I get to a room, and it transitions into just this one small back room area. And the house transitions from being this old wooden style house, and this one last room is a more modern style, plasterboard, drywall area, and it has three big windows and three beds, and it's just a narrow room, just enough to have these beds in it. So I go to the beds and look in, and I see my recently deceased grandmother. She passed away probably 18 months ago now, and she's lying in bed, and she opens her eyes, and she looks really terrible, like old and haggard. She's probably the nicest person I've ever met and probably ever will meet in my life. She never said a harsh word to anybody. She wouldn't swear. She's just a genuinely terrific soul. And I was shocked at how bad she looked. She just looked worn down. She had missing teeth and all sorts of things. Her bloodshot eyes and bags, just things that she'd never had in her life. And she looked terrible, like really stressed. And in the two beds beside her were two of my cousins. They're older now, but they were more, let's say, adolescent, and they were lying in bed. And obviously people who go through this, you get the communication here is, you get impressions, but the impressions are correct. Whatever impression you're getting is right. It's not like there's any vagueness about it. And so I understood that she was looking after these two guys, my two cousins. And it was taking a toll, and I could tell that she thought that her whole life was just going to be about looking after others and never having time for herself, and it was bringing it down. It was stressful for her. It was hard work, and so I think, to me, maybe part of her life felt this way. She was a real giver. Like, she was very nurturing and caring, and always looked after people. Always, she took me in for a little while. Oh, she'd let everyone go through her house and stay there at some point. And also her husband, my pop, he passed away some 20 years ago. So she did a lot of that on her own. So I looked at her, and then she sort of sits up at a bed and she looks at me, and I just sort of started crying. I just couldn't believe what a state she was in. It just broke my heart. And then she looked in my eyes and she just looked up at me, and I had to thought, because I knew this was her afterlife. This is where she'd ended up after she died. And I just couldn't believe she was here. Like, thinking, why would you create this for yourself? And then I also realized that, this was part of her soul that needed this was a part of her that she thought she was. And this is where her soul, this is where she chose to end up. But she sat up out of bed and she looked me straight in the eyes, and she said, as I had that thought about her being dead, and I didn't know how to break it to her. I was thinking, how am I going to tell her? And she looked me straight in the eyes. She just goes, "I'm dead, aren't I?" And just this massive wave of emotion came over me. I just grabbed her in a huge hug. I was bawling my eyes out. She was crying. I was bawling, and then I was bawling for her, and I was bawling for me, thinking, I don't know how to help. This is tragic. Like, all this stuff that I've been trying to learn through for years, like, none of it has served me. Like, I'll get to the point where I can actually use it. And so I started crying for me, and I felt really selfish. So I started crying more because I was being selfish when she was the one who was in need. Oh, and it was terrible. But it was actually a really good relief. And when I actually woke up, like, I had real tears on my face when I woke up. But then I hugged her, and an idea came to me, and I thought, hang on, wait. I've got to show her that this is her reality. She's created this reality, and that I'm here now, and I can also influence this reality. So often in my astral adventures, I fly all the time. I love flying. Anyone who doesn't love flying? I mean, and it's an art, and it takes practice. And the more you do it, the better you get it, the more control you have over it. And certain areas you have more control, and some areas you don't. So I thought, look, I'll just move something. Like, I'll move something in my mind, and there was a bowl, like an old wooden bowl. And I went to move it. Normally, if I did that in a dream, I just lift it up and move it wherever I wanted to, in a lucid dream. But this, I really couldn't. It moved a little bit. It moved to the side, and then it just fell off the side of the table. And I thought, oh man, that's not going to do it. And she just looked at me with these wide eyes, and the realization hit her that she was creating this. I don't think she realised that she was creating the whole reality she was in, but she certainly realised that she could have some influence on it. And the next thing, she flew up out of bed, jumped over to the window, and she instantly transformed like into a teenage girl. And she was full of joy, laughing and giggling. And she went over to the windows, and she, for some reason, was just moving the latches back and forth with her mind as she raising her hand, and she was just laughing in joy at the fact that she could control this. And she, in that instant, had totally forgot I was even there. She didn't even. She was totally focused on that, and that was at the point I realised my job was done. And then I woke up, and sort of woke up, I had tears, and I felt so wonderfully good. afterwards, it was a really incredible experience. And I think that like, if you read Bullman and Robert Munro, they talk a lot about conversing with the dead, and I think that's a very major point. And I think people who go down this path, this is one of the things you have to do. You have to wake people up. This is a great awakening, and we need to wake up as many people as possible. Don't try to wake up people who aren't interested. It's fine to wake up on their own. But anyone who shows a modicum, and especially if you can lucid dream and go into those astral worlds and find deceased people and show them that they have some control. I don't think you're not going to show them that they're creating their reality. And in a sense, we're co-creators, so we're not going to have you're not going to, like in this waking state, be able to do anything you like, because there are rules set down by the ISBs that create it in the first place. And those rules are very, very strongly held by all the beliefs of the people here, which is for a reason. But I think the more you come in your power, the more you can influence the world around you. But particularly so in lucid dreams and in other realms where it's not so hard and fast. The rules aren't hard and fast. There's not as many creators. Might only be a few. In those situations, you can definitely manipulate your environment. And obviously that seems like a good way maybe to wake people up that are stuck. So if you come across some relatives, find a way of gently waking them up. Find a way of reminding them that they're dead. And look, in reality, there's no such thing as death. It's just life and life. There's no death. We drop the body. The reason we call it death is because we have our memories erased after we die. That's a system set up on this planet. It's a story. If you want to hear more about it, I can let you know. It's a good story, and I think it's something that people need to know, because I think without information, it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to wake up, and it's extremely difficult to get away from this planet. The hypnosis and the mind erasure and the tricks and traps, they're brutal. Whoever created this game was a genius, but it's just gone too far. People need to wake up and bring it to an end and create the world as it could be, as a paradise. All right, I'll bring some more stories later. That's probably plenty. All right, see you guys. Bye.